Welcome to another Understanding Town Government show. I'm Dennis Dostert, your host, and today we will be discussing the Board of Selectmen and the First Selectman. Our guests here today are Joe Mazza, our present First Selectman, and Carl Balistraci, our past First Selectman. The Selectman system is a descendant of the town meeting form of government that existed here for a couple of hundred years. Originally, the town meeting handled all the government in the town. Every year, when they met, they would make decisions and appoint someone to take care of whatever the town needed. But as time went on and things became more complex, it was necessary to pick a group of men who could manage the town all the time. These were selected men, selectmen. As things became even more complicated, these selectmen had to appoint boards and commissions because of technical research that many of these jobs required. And so the Board of Selectmen no longer governed alone. That is the system that we have today, one in which boards and commissions are set up to govern the town, supervised by the Board of Selectmen. Joe, what is the status of the town meeting today in Guilford?
Well, the town meeting is really called for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's by state statute in our form of government where you have a selectmen, board of selectmen, town meeting type of government that we have to have an annual town meeting. Coincidentally, tonight is our annual town meeting. And this is where various boards and commissions will present their reports. Okay. The other reason to have a town meeting is, first of all, it's required for our budget process. Before it can go to referendum, it has to go to a town meeting. And then as far as any large bonding issue, anything over $1 million appropriation has to go to a town meeting and then to a referendum. If it's under $1 million, it does not have to go to referendum. It could be handled at the town meeting. And that's for any long-term borrowing. That's basically what we've had town meetings for in recent years. Yeah.
Does the town meeting system still work, though, because you don't have the entire town?
That's right. I mean,
like
we
have
22,500 people, about a little less than 15,000 registered voters. We would have no place to put them if we had we had one to conduct business, and it's probably really outgrowing its needs, or has in a long time, because the attendance is not that good, as a matter of fact, to begin with. And number two, be honest about it, if you're very passionate about an issue that goes to town meeting, it's very easy to stack a town meeting. Yeah. So that's why a lot of our issues go to referendum, and the town meeting is really just a step in that process.
Yeah, the town meeting used to actually elect the selectmen, right? And
yeah, sure.
Yeah, right, and now it goes to the town as a whole because that system doesn't really work that well.
Okay.
Is there anything Carl, as a town historian, that you might add to my summary? Anything I?
Well, one of the things that I picked up on is that you said that a small group of men were picked to govern, and that's very correct. Right from the very beginning, women did not have the rights of voting for things. The signers of the Guilford Covenant, for instance, in 1639, were the heads of the family, the male heads of the family, and 24 men signed that petition. A few years ago, when we were cleaning out the vault downstairs, we found some ledgers with women who, when they first got the right to vote, and how excited they were and signed up and whatnot. But as we know, that didn't come for many, many years. The town meeting itself has changed a great deal in the last, well, in my lifetime. I can remember going to some when I was younger, with Leslie I. Dudley as our selectman. And one of the last ones that was really controversial had to do with a group of people who wanted to come and put a horse track up. This was before the casinos. A horse track on what is now Rings End and the truck stop at exit 56. Most of the land was in Brantford, but they needed Newar's Apple Orchard and some of the Guilford land for parking. And they had a very erudite, handsome young lawyer from Harvard that was representing the group that wanted to come to Guilford. And the old Yankee farmers went to the town meeting and they demanded to know who all the backers were for this project. And of course, the young Harvard lawyer wasn't about to name any names and who the backers were, and it never came to fruition because the Yankee farmers were smart enough to know. But and some women came to the town meetings back in those days, but I can actually remember a couple of ladies, and I won't mention their names, but they were big advocates of Jacob's Beach, and they wanted to rake the beach and fix the beach up and get the town to spend some money. And Leslie I. Dudley stood up at one town meeting and said, "Ethel, you ought to go home and wash your dishes and know where you belong." I mean, if you can imagine that happening today, we'd have a revolution. But so town meetings have changed, and I agree with Joe that it's almost to the point where they've really outlived their real usefulness.
Mm-hmm. And Joe, can you add anything to this and tell us more about how the Board of Selectmen works today?
Well, I think it works very well to begin with, okay? Carl and I have served on different boards of selectmen, and I think we still have a great working relationship. But basically, the Board of Selectmen is, in matters that don't go to town meeting, is the legislative branch, and also the first selectman is the executive branch, having a vote on the Board of Selectmen. We handle just about everything that does not involve education, for instance. All of the other boards and commissions, except the Board of Finance, really reports to the Board of Selectmen. Okay. So that's a big job for 5 people, excuse me. The Board of Finance is kind of autonomous. They're the watchdogs of our finances. They hire our auditors. They review, like the selectmen, they review the monthly reports. They approve the budget for both town and school budgets that go to the town meeting and eventually the town referendum. So. Okay. But all of the boards report to the Board of Selectmen. And I will give one exception, okay, which is the ones covered under state statute, and that is fire, police commissions, and also planning and zoning, inland wetlands, all your land use. They are kind of autonomous. The interaction between the Board of Selectmen and those boards is only that the Board of Selectmen get to appoint the members of those boards or commissions.
Okay.
All right?
So my next question was, does the Board of Selectmen have veto power over the decisions of appointed boards and commissions? And you're saying some yes and some not so much.
It depends. If you're asking me, it depends on the issue. For instance, the police commission will negotiate a police contract with the police union. Right. But the Board of Selectmen have the final vote on whether to ratify that contract on behalf of the town. And same thing with the fire commission. But as far as any other boards other than the land use commissions or boards like planning and zoning and inland wetlands, whatever decision is made at those boards, we have no input at all on it.
Okay.
I think one of the great strengths in Guilford is that we have a system of checks and balances between the Board of Selectmen and boards and commissions, and that, in a sense, forces us to work together We can disagree on some issues, but the issues have to be discussed, they have to be ironed out. And in recent years, I think it's been very successful in that whoever the first selectman has been, decisions have been made for the benefit of Guilford and not for a particular party or whatever. In some of the towns along the shoreline, mostly the bigger towns, a lot of the employees are appointed by the mayor. And when a new mayor comes in, the old people are out and the veterans are out and new people come in. In Guilford, our employees are civil servants. The only one that we get to really hire as a first selectman would be town council.
Yeah.
But that's a great strength to Guilford because, as Joe and I both know, these people that have worked for years in their technical fields are a great support, not just to the first selectman, but also to the town of Guilford.
So it would be the boards and commissions, like the Planning and Zoning Commission, that might hire or fire a town planner, for example?
No, not really.
Not really,
No,
no.
okay.
Well,
How would that
it
work?
would be the first selectman would hire, but let's take planning and zoning and the town planner. He would be, or she would be the staff person for the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Right.
But as far as on a day-to-day working relationship, they would work for the first selectman and board of selectmen.
Okay.
Okay. Now, when it comes to, the police department, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Police and fire, the police commission and fire commission would hire their respective staff.
Okay.
Okay. And they do not report to the first selectman. But the fire chief and police chief, they work through the commission and also are under the first selectman.
So the police commission actually hires the chief?
They make a recommendation
Uh-huh.
to the board of selectmen on a candidate and make a recommendation on their contract that they wish to offer the candidate. And then the board of selectmen have the final say to either yay or nay on that,
But on the recommendation
of the commission.
of the
Or the
commission.
police
Yeah.
commission.
And the system works very well, as everybody, I think, knows in Guilford. If we take the police department, for instance, we have one of the highest rated police departments in the state, or even the region. We made conscious decisions years ago to make sure that our leadership on the police department were professional. We went to a chief at one point that not only had his bachelor's degree and master's degree, but also was an FBI Academy graduate, and that's been true ever since. Today, both our chief and our assistant chief have not only master's degrees and beyond, but our assistant chief is a lawyer.
Yeah.
We're not only very proud, I think, of these departments, but they, because they're run in a very professional manner by their own commissions, they serve Guilford very, very well.
Well, that is a question. As a first selectman, you are a leader of the direction in which Guilford goes. How do you lead these boards and commissions if they're so independent?
Well, they're independent in the respect of setting policy on operating the department. Okay. But when it comes to the day-to-day operation, or we have extenuating circumstances or emergencies, such as, I hate to say the word, hurricanes or storms, okay? It's under the direction of the first selectman and the emergency management control officer. Okay, and in this town happens to be the fire chief. But I know in my experience, I hate to say this, in the last 5 years, I've had 5 FEMA incidents. I would call together the emergency management team, and I would be at the head of that team for all those incidents. And it would be up to me, with the help and obviously the professional assistance of the police and fire, and I can go down the list, health department, whatever, to work through the event, work through the emergency. So on a day-to-day, I think the difference is, Dennis, on a day-to-day operation, it's the first selectman. When it comes to setting policy and negotiating contracts and setting department guidelines, it would be the board or commission in that regard. Okay?
One of the important things with our first selectman's position is that we also made a conscious decision to make that office more professional. We have monthly department head meetings now, for instance, where all of the department heads get together with the first selectman. They discuss issues. They might discuss policy. They certainly talk about the budget as preparation for preparing a budget. And this constant, not only cooperation, but communication is so important because it works both ways. It's first selectman can say, well, this is what I'd like to see happen with, say, the budget, but then the department heads get to advise the first selectman and also, end up having to work together in a very professional way, which makes it so much more efficient for the town.
And just to pick up a little bit from where Carl left off, on the budget process, the boards and commissions with the department heads set their own budget and then present it to the Board of Selectmen. Mm-hmm. And the Board of Selectmen then have the authority, to adjust that budget up and down, mm-hmm. line item by line item, and then put together a town budget, which is then sent to the Board of Finance. So in that regard, and to also, Carl mentioned the staff meetings. Again, coincidentally, I had one this morning. This is where all of the department heads, including the chiefs and department managers, we get together at least once a month and talk about issues of the town. I'll tell them what I like, what I don't like, and they'll report back to me about issues in their departments, and also the other department heads get to have a sense of what's going on in the other departments, so everybody knows. We all work together, but everybody knows what's going on. But that's part of that day-to-day operation, which I mentioned before.
Yes, and does the Board of Selectmen have any influence over elected boards, such as the Board of Education, Board of Finance?
No, none whatsoever. The Board of Education is autonomous. They're independently elected. Mm-hmm. They choose the superintendent. The Board of Selectmen have no say whatsoever on the Board of Education's budget. The only board, other than the Board of Education, that has a say on the budget is the Board of Finance. And then once the Board of Finance approves their budget to be sent to referendum with the town budget, and that referendum is ratified or the budgets are passed, Board of Finance doesn't even have any say within the education budget, unless they need more money. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
do selectmen receive pay, and how much? No, I know you do.
I do. Yeah.
Yes.
I receive $104,000 right now. That's my salary, and the selectmen receive, I think, $10,000. It's really a stipend they receive. They're considered part-time employees.
Okay. And because they're not responsible when the storms or something.
Right.
That's right.
But I will say, in my past experience, the 5 events that I mentioned, first of all, they're always welcome to attend these management meetings, these we call unified command meetings. They're always, if they're not there, I inform them of what took place and what's going to take place at the next meeting. So I try to involve the rest of the board as much as I can.
Good idea.
It is.
Yes.
Kind of share the blame that way.
Let me just say, because I know in any issue, and whether it's the pay of the first selectman or whatever, some people might want to criticize that. But I remember the first time I got sworn in, the first person to come over and point his finger at me was the fire chief. He said, just remember, he said, your job is 24/7, 365, and if I call you at 3 o'clock in the morning, you got to come. He was teasing me, but not teasing me. I mean, he was, being a little forceful, but it's true. I mean, if something
do
happens,
call. They do call.
I mean, if something happens, the first selectman has to go and has to help, make the decisions and whatnot. So it's not just a 9-to-5 job. It's every day and most evenings. And I I think you really have to enjoy the job to
you
do
do.
it well, because
do.
it's certainly very demanding. It's like being CEO of a large
It is. Yeah.
large corporation.
And in regard to salaries, a question might arise, well, who sets the salaries? It's the Board of Finance that
Right.
sets it. The Board of Selectmen have no authority to set salaries for their own board and for the first selectman, or any other elected official who receives a salary. And the only other one that I can think of at the moment are the two registrars. Yeah. And that's all set by Board of Finance.
Yeah. Let's address especially the role of the first selectman. How is the role of the first selectman different from that of a mayor?
I don't know, Carl, I would say it's, I'm from New York, right? And my family's all New York, and you know, when we get together, matter of fact, I was just at a wedding. What are you doing now? Well, I'm first selectman. Well, what's that?
Right.
You know, it's what's elected office. And then, but I start telling them that I'm mayor because they don't understand what first selectman. It's a New England term. I think the difference even in Connecticut is that if you're a mayor, you have a town council which is independently elected. Whereas with the first selectman town meeting, it's Board of Selectmen without a town council, and major funding issues are approved by either referendum or in some towns a representative town meeting. Right, Carl? Yeah. That's basically it.
And a lot of the character of the job, whether it's mayor, first selectman, or whatever it is really up to the individual. We've had some mayors and some first selectmen who only want to work 5 days a week, or it's just a job to them. Mm-hmm. Fortunately, in Guilford, we don't have that attitude, but a lot of it is made up by the person holding the position. I mean, we've got some mayors in Connecticut that, well, let me just say we're lucky that they're not mayors, they're first selectmen in Guilford. But we've been very fortunate in Guilford over the years to have some wonderful people serve, including a woman, by the way.
That's right.
Marge Smith, who served for a term as our first select woman.
So we've had a history of selectmen that take the job seriously and do it professionally.
Yeah.
I think in all my years as a resident of Guilford, which I'm going on 27 years now, which I know is a newcomer by Guilford standards, I can't remember any first selectman that did not take it seriously.
Yeah.
Now, you've answered this question, I think, once already in our other discussion. You talked about how you have these meetings, weekly meetings of all the department heads, and
Monthly,
this is how you get knowledge of what the needs of the town are. It's from these meetings?
No.
No. Okay.
I mean, each first selectman uses the meetings a little bit differently. I use it, first of all, to inform the department heads as a group what I'm concerned about or what's coming down the pike, whether it be the budgets or events coming down in town to be prepared for. I'm talking to department heads every day on various issues, and you have to. You can't just wait for a monthly meeting. Right. What's going on in town? If your department heads don't inform you and you don't find out yourself, the residents will tell you. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
they call you up.
Yeah, they'll call you up. They'll send you an email, and I think a very important part of the job is just getting back to people and hearing what their problem is, because a lot of times their problem is going to be a town problem if you don't handle it.
So you're kind of a lightning rod.
All the time.
Do you have anything to add to that, Carl?
Well, sometimes it's very serious in the communication with citizens in general. Sometimes it's kind of hilarious. I can remember calls like one woman called the first month I was in office. There were turkey buzzards in trees on her street, and they were scaring her child. She wanted the public works to go down and tie aluminum pie plates to the trees to scare them away. You get all kinds of calls, but a lot of times the calls are serious, and there's some concern, and you have to talk to the department heads involved, and then get back to the person. But in Guilford, when a citizen has a problem, it's usually the first selectman's office that they call.
And you just have to know which calls are going to be important to the town as a whole,
Yeah.
and which are just not really that important to the town as a whole.
And you have to to know where to direct the call to.
Yeah.
You take the information, you get in touch with the department head who would be responsible for handling that particular problem or issue, and you ask them to handle it and report back to you. Either they'll talk to the individual directly, a lot of times I'll call them back or send them an email, or the department head will just handle it.
Yeah.
And, one question for both of you, and you touched on this one before too. Are you able to get away from the job, or is it on you all hours, day and night?
Well, one way to get away from it is have open heart surgery. I went through that, as you know. That's probably the only way I got away from it. Right? But generally, if you take a vacation with today's means of communication, the email and all the other electronic sources of communication, you keep on top of what's going on. But in Guilford, we do have a provision in our charter that allows for one of the selectmen to be appointed or elected from the rest of the board as what we call the second selectman. And in the first selectman's absence, he or she then will step in and handle the day-to-day operation. And I saw that work very well during my month of rehabilitation from the surgery that Charles Haviter, who's my lieutenant, did a fantastic job on the day-to-day operations.
So you don't actually decide, like at the moment, this is the person that's going to replace me. There's a sort of tradition about it?
There's a process, it's in the charter.
Yeah.
The first meeting of the new Board of Selectmen have to vote,
I see.
along with appointing, I think, the town attorney at the same time.
Town council.
Yeah. So, but there is, I got to hand it to the framers of our charters. They thought just about everything.
Yeah.
Now, are there any current issues you'd like to discuss today, either one of you?
Well, I think the major issue right now is our new high school that's under construction. It's a large project. It's a $92 million project, which is funded 1/3 by the state of Connecticut. It's on time, it's on budget, and the students should be in the high school by September of next year, September 2015. And it's moving along real well. It's probably, I think, the biggest project this town has had in its history.
Yeah, largest budget bonding issue we've ever had.
Yep.
I think one of the other issues that the Board of Selectmen and the first Selectmen have faced and will be facing for the next how many years is climate change and the rising waters. Joe and the Board of Selectmen have put money into the budget because this summer they're going to be tackling several roads in town that have drainage problems that have to be raised because every month now they're in danger of being underwater. And we have a whole program, excuse me, to mitigate some of the problems with the houses that are close to salt marsh or close to the water's edge, because that is a very big change that's occurring, and there really isn't much you can do except to mitigate it, to work with the problem. But that's something that the whole town will be facing over the next several years.
We have 4 roads that have been earmarked to be raised. 3 of them are funded through town funds, which the approval was given to us by the voters last year to go out for bonding for Old Quarry Road, Chetfish Island Road, and Tunnels Point. The 4th road is going to be Long Hill Road,
Right,
which
the south end.
south end from Hubbard down to US 1, which floods enormous amount of times when we have a lot of heavy rain and the West River overflows. That's 80% going to be funded by federal money. And so we're working on that. But Carl is right. We have addressed issues of climate change and rising sea level. Guilford was out in the forefront with its study of coastal resilience, which the plan has been put together. It hasn't been officially adopted by the Board of Selectmen yet. It's still dealing with some legal issues in there that have to be addressed, but probably this summer that will come before the board. And the town has been recognized by various state organizations as one of the leading towns in dealing with these issues. And then we got 375 this year.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you think that the audience ought to know, or our viewing audience ought to know about the Board of Selectmen that we haven't covered?
Well, I will say that a few years back we had our charter revision, and the people voted to extend the first selectman, well, the selectman's position from 2 to 4 years. I think that was a very wise decision on the part of the people. It allows, especially, say, the first selectman's administration, to not only get into office and have time to present a program that may work over several years, but then have time to accomplish that rather than every 2 years, because in a 2-year term, you have to start campaigning like a year ahead of time. And I was just at a meeting, a fundraiser, political fundraiser this weekend, and a selectman from a neighboring town said that he tried to get it extended to 4 years, and it was turned down. But I think Guilford has made some very wise decisions in the past, and I think one of the things we're going to have to tackle in the future, and I don't know when, but at the next Charter Revision Commission proposal will be to maybe change over to having districts in Guilford and district representatives as well as a first selectman, or whatever title you want to give that person. But Guilford lends itself, we are the 7th largest town in Connecticut, and it lends itself to having voting districts and district representatives. I mean, the districts in Guilford are so different. North Guilford is almost like a community unto itself. Right. Sachem's Head and the shore communities and the center of town, et cetera. We tried that in the last charter revision, and it was too much of a change all at once. But I think as people think about it, if it's proposed properly, I think that in the future, that's one way that Guilford maybe should go.
And just to add what Carl said about the Board of Selectmen, maybe it was a compromise between an RTM, which is a representative town meeting, and the 3 board selectmen, which is what we had about 10 years ago. Yeah. Was the last time I had it. They expanded the board to 5 now, and I think Carl can attest to this because he had a five-member board too. You kind of spread out the work a little bit more because we have so much to handle. I think it's worked well. I haven't heard of anyone saying that we should go back to a 3-member board. No.
We used to have 3-member boards on commissions too, like the police commission.
Yep,
and
that's right.
They expanded to 5, and it's much better that way. You get more representation. You get more bipartisanship. I can remember first being on the board of police commissioners when there were 3, and the 2 would meet have coffee and decide the whole agenda. And by the time I got there for the meeting, I might as well have stayed home. Yeah. But it works so much better now with the increased number on boards and commissions and the bipartisanship.
Yeah. And then one thing I will add is that I've served on the Board of Finance for 10 years before going on the Board of Selectmen and First Selectmen. It'll be another 10 years or so. The unique thing about Guilford and what makes Guilford so attractive amongst its character and its scenery and its people is the fact that the day after the election, even election night, you don't know who's Republican, who's Democrat. we work so well together. I mean, you served, you're on the zoning board of appeals.
Right, exactly.
You know what I'm talking about.
I absolutely do.
And there's one thing that I guard, I put my guard up with when we try to get too political. It's no good for the town. It's no good
Right.
for its citizens, and we don't accomplish much if we do
Right.
that. And Guilford has been a great town, at least for me, to be on an elected official and to work with the other party, because people have to ask me, what are you, Republican or Democrat? I'm sure Carl's had the same questions. But that's what makes it good.
One of the big terms in politics today is transparency. The ability to tell the public or inform the public on what government does. We hope that today's program has made the Board of Selectmen more transparent for you. Good day.